Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Financial Issues. It is great to be here with you all today. Excited to have you. Seth Udinsky joining you this morning. Thanks for spending your Thursday morning with us. We'll be here live for the next hour. Happy to have you folks. Got a busy show today here, so let's get right to it, shall we? Later in the show, we're going to have author and economist Spencer Morrison. He's going to join me to share his expertise on the potentially wide-ranging benefits of the Trump tariffs. Now, it's interesting. We had a guest on earlier this week, Michael Austin, who was a little bit more down on these tariffs. So we're going to hear kind of the other perspective from Spencer Morrison on the opinion that maybe the tariffs could be a pretty good thing. Stay tuned for that, folks. I'm interested for that conversation.
Trying to give you the full picture.
Yeah, the full picture here, folks. Exactly right. Speaking of which, we're also going to have Melanie Collette. Melanie is the author and policy analyst for the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow. She joins me to discuss Costco's recent decision to avoid selling the abortion pill mifepristone. You're going to want to stick around for that conversation. We'll also get your comments and questions. Also, Sam, finding this fascinating here. People always get investing and gambling confused all the time, right? We've talked about that on this show all the time. They get them confused.
Hear it all the time that the stock market is just the world's biggest casino. It's a casino for rich people.
Exactly. So we try to shine the light on the truth of this, that there actually are massive differences between investing and gambling. Gambling, there's really nothing good about it at all. Investing, there are some very good things about it, and we would urge Christians to consider investing. However, we're being undercut by one very popular investment platform who is now conflating the two by offering sports betting as one of its options on its investing platform. We'll save that for later on in the show. I'll try to mask my frustration at that. At least save it for later in the show when we talk about it, Sam. But it's great to be
Seth
here with you,
folks. Seth is going to be seething the whole show.
I know.
It's going to derail the interviews.
Yeah, we had a good rant yesterday, and we might get one today as well. We'll just have to see how that goes. But before any of that, folks, we did get some more earnings out this morning. Walmart reported earnings. This was probably, I'd say, the biggest one of the week in terms of retail. And we did have a couple big ones. They did not beat earnings per share. They fell a little bit short, 68 cents adjusted versus 74 expected. But they did beat on revenue. So that's what that was looking like there for Walmart. Sam, anything important that we need to know from Walmart's earnings in your research?
Well, from what I can tell, most of the issues that they were having this quarter were one-offs. It really didn't have anything to do with the fundamental elements of the business.
Yep. So good stuff there, Sam. Also, we got the FOMC minutes released yesterday from their July meeting. The meeting summary, there was really nothing of note to report about it, but there's a divergence of opinion among the central bankers. Who would have thought? They are whether or not to hold the key rate steady or to lower rates despite objections. At least two Fed governors, and I wonder if there's maybe more at this point, who are arguing in favor of cutting. So we'll be keeping an eye. I think it's less than a month now. We'll be at the next Fed meeting, and we'll see if indeed the Fed will cut rates. Last numbers I saw was 86% is believing that they will cut rates.
And there could be even more shakeup because Trump's now investigating one of the governors for mortgage fraud. So that could get juicy real quick.
And it certainly can. So we'll be keeping an eye on that, all that stuff there, folks. Markets, meanwhile, yesterday. So the tech sell-off from Tuesday continued into Wednesday. The major indices led by the NASDAQ continued downward. By midday, all three were in negative territory. Late afternoon, much the same. By the closing bell, again, the Dow Jones, which has been resilient this past week, was able to finish with its head above water. The S&P 500, meanwhile, was down a quarter, and the NASDAQ suffered back-to-back losses. Down not as bad, though, as it was on Tuesday, only down about 0.2%. Pre-markets this morning are pricing in somewhat negative. With the Dow Jones down about 2/5. Same with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ creeping down towards 0.5 of a percentage point down. So we'll see what the markets do today with all the information that they've gotten from earnings and the FOMC and things like that. All right, Sam, let's move to this headline here. I think this is an interesting one. I think it's one that we need to talk about as well, especially from a biblically responsible investing perspective. The Trump administration is cracking down on Chinese slave labor. What can you tell us about this, Sam?
That's right. Very important for our ministry. So often when we talk about BRI, we talk about issues like the LGBT agenda and abortion. But there's so many other things as well, including the issue of human rights abuses, slave labor, things like that. And Donald Trump is now taking an interest in this issue. As you're right, the Department of Homeland Security is now increasing scrutiny of Chinese imports suspected of being produced with slave labor, particularly those Uyghur Muslims, which China has been rounding up and using them for slave labor for some time now. According to Fox Business, products such as Chinese steel, copper, lithium, caustic soda, and even red dates have now been designated as, quote, high priority for inspection. And as a result, these imports will face now enhanced scrutiny by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. As of August 1st of this year, approximately $3.7 billion worth of goods have been flagged for additional inspection, with nearly 900 million of them being denied entry into the United States. $900 million worth of goods, that is. By the way, a 2020 report identified 83 major global brands allegedly benefiting from this slave labor, either directly or indirectly. That includes major companies like Apple, Amazon, Nike, Samsung, and many, many more.
And of course, Sam, those companies, that automatically would disqualify them from being biblically responsible.
Yes.
For not just that reason, other reasons as well, but that's an important one. Sam, I'm glad you brought that up. This is tremendous to see. I like what the Trump administration is doing here, and I think another reason to be in favor of their efforts to isolate the CCP. This is happening through tariffs, and now it's also happening here as well, bringing light to something that is a serious issue. Sam, you're exactly right. The common BRI issues that we've talked about over the last several years have really been dominated by abortion and the LGBTQ agenda. And rightfully so, because that's what's on the national consciousness. But folks, there are a litany of issues.
And because companies willingly disclose that they're supporting those things. I can't think of a single company that says, we're pro-slave labor and we're actually benefiting from that. Companies are pretty reluctant to share that kind of thing.
Companies will come right out and say, we offer abortion travel for employees because it's under healthcare, they'll say, or they'll say we're accepting of the LGBT community because it's seen as social justice or whatever it is. None of them will come out and say, we enslave people to sell our products. None of them will do that. Okay, so there's extra research that needs to happen. And this is so important for us, folks. We cannot look past this grotesque human rights abuse that is committed by a litany of companies, including those Sam just mentioned. In some way, shape, or form, these companies profit off of the now latest numbers I hear is it's 50 million. 50 million enslaved people in the world today. That's the most ever. Number shocked me when I first heard it. Growing up, I heard the number was around 27 million, so that's double what that is there. Folks, listen, slavery, just like the abortion, just like the gay stuff, it's an abomination. Okay, it's an abomination. We as the people of God, therefore, we must not turn a blind eye to modern day slavery. We have to stand against this. This is why our strategy matters, really, is we want to push back against the darkness of modern day slavery as much as we want to against the darkness of abortion and against the darkness of pornography and against the darkness of the LGBTQ anti-family agenda. And this hits home for me, Sam, in particular, as a father, having 3 young children of my own, realizing the reality that many modern day slaves sadly are children. And some of them even as young as my children are. Furthermore, many of these children are trapped in one of the most grotesque forms of slavery, which is sexual slavery. The number I saw was somewhere around 22 million people, many of them probably underage, live in forced marriages. Which is a form of slavery. 4 out of 5 cases of sexual exploitation, so sexual slavery, are women and girls. And human trafficking, get this, generates somewhere around $150 billion per year, with well over half of that profit coming from sexual slavery. It also hits home when you realize, another thing that we screen out against here at the ministry, folks, is pornography. And this is just me using my eyes and using the common sense that the Lord has given me, that pornography is oftentimes a front of sexual slavery. That many, many times you see in pornographic industries that oftentimes women and girls who are being pornographied, they're not doing it of their own volition. It's usually either in part or in full against their will. That's human trafficking. It's the same thing. So this is happening here. You have this crossover now of things that we're trying to screen against. Folks, how do we fight against this? I think it's really pretty simple. I think we need to start by keeping our money out of the hands of companies who will do wicked things with it. We don't want to have any part of companies that will enslave other human beings with the money that we invest in them. That's why our strategy is so important.
And then you make money off of their enslavement.
Yeah,
so you really
exactly
do not
right.
want that. If there's tainted money, if I can think of any, it would be this.
Yep, that's exactly right. We talk about blood money. I think that's a pretty good example of it there, folks. So that's why our strategy is so important here. I'm loving what I'm seeing with the Trump administration doing that. I hope that that even more comes to light and that it can be stopped. Absolutely, from our mortal enemy, the Communist Chinese Party. Folks, did want to make a couple of announcements here before the end of this break, before we have Spencer join the show in the next segment. We do have a partner conference call later today, okay? Please mark your calendars, make a note to be there, 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time today. You should have gotten an email with the call number and access code. Just follow that, dial that in. Again, 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time today. You'll get to hear Shanna's great insight. I'm looking forward to it as well. We also have more than 500 signatures on our Tesla petition. You have less than 48, really about 36 hours left to sign this petition. You got to sign it, folks. If you haven't signed it, do it right now. We just talked about how we want to screen against things that God hates, and we're trying to do that with Tesla here. We want them to change their ways and stop using investor dollars to fund the abortion and trans industries. So sign that petition today at financialissues.org. We'll be right back after this.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life, and some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay, or to go, to remain the same, or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
It's a challenging world that we live in right now. There's a lot of corporations that frankly stand for some pretty evil things. We need to be responsible stewards of our money, putting it in companies that will support our values.
If you are interested in equipping yourself to engage in the culture, I would just highly recommend availing yourself of the Ministry of Financial Issues.
That was probably the best decision that we ever made.
Align your investments with your faith. Become an FISM partner today at financialissues.org.
Preborn is making motherhood possible for thousands of moms across America.
I found out that I was pregnant. My family, they were like, no, you're not having this baby. I met Miss Linda. She offered to get me an ultrasound. That's where I very first heard the heartbeat. It was really a great thing that I was led to the choice to keep on.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
Welcome back to the show, folks. Good to be here with you today. I got a special guest on the program with me. Always exciting to invite voices on the program who can speak to these deep issues of the day, and I've got one here. I've got Spencer Morrison. Now, Spencer's the editor-in-chief of the National Economics Editorial. He's also the author of Reshore: How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. Spencer, welcome to Financial Issues, brother. Thanks for joining me today.
It's my pleasure to be on the program.
Absolutely. So as you know, Spencer, the financial news cycle has been, I think, rightly dominated in recent days by President Trump's tariffs and their implications on the American economic ecosystem, as it were. Now, I was really fascinated to read the title of your book. And once again, that title, folks, is Reshore: How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. Spencer, my guess based on that title is that you believe, in some sense, these tariffs will accomplish this twofold goal. First of all, let me ask you this. Why are you confident that this could happen?
Well, the main reason is that it's based on sound historical precedent and economic logic. I just want to paint a picture for you, a picture of the history of this country.
Yeah.
There's this great guy, you may have heard of him. His name is Alexander Hamilton. He wrote
pretty good guy.
Pretty good guy. He wrote I think there's a Broadway play about him. I think that's what it's from.
I think so. Yeah. That's
he
probably
also,
how a lot of the young people know about him rather than in history books, right?
Yeah. Well, as it turns out, he not only is in the history books, he wrote one of the most important history books in terms of American economic history, and that's called The Report on Manufactures. This was sort of Alexander Hamilton's magnum opus, in which he said that tariffs were the core to the American system of economic development. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, they're a great way to fund the government because they are a small government solution. Why? Because if you raise tariffs too high, people just stop buying foreign goods. Instead, they buy American and the tax base dries up, right? So you can never have government that goes out of control if it's funded based on tariffs, because tariffs are an optional tax. Number two, and this is the more important element, tariffs were explicitly designed in order to prioritize American economic production as opposed to imports. So what happened at the time of the American Revolution is the American Revolution almost didn't get off the ground. The reason for that is that America couldn't manufacture enough of the materials that it needed to actually win the war. And we actually relied on imports and donations from particularly France in order to win the revolution. For example, they provided over 80,000 firearms to the Revolutionary Army. Of course, the revolution couldn't have been won without those 80,000 firearms. So what Alexander Hamilton realized is that you can't have political freedom, you can't have an independent country without an independent, productive economy. So tariffs were all designed to industrialize America and to make it economically self-sufficient. And that's why President George Washington signed the Tariff Act of 1789, which was the first major piece of legislation. That set America along a course of industrializing and developing its economy under the protection of tariffs. Throughout the 1800s, America had the highest average tariff rates on planet Earth. And of course, America grew into the biggest economy on planet Earth. And that's because those two things are related. America had to become self-sufficient because it couldn't just buy everything cheap from Europe. 50 years ago, we flipped that paradigm on its head. And instead, we started buying all of these products from foreign countries rather than building them. And of course, what's happened? America's economy has been turned upside down. The middle class has been ravaged. We've lost tens of thousands of factories. We're producing not what we need. We're not producing the stuff that we need anymore, right? Like silicone chips, we rely on computer chips from China, pharmaceuticals from China. It's a total disaster. So when I wrote this book, How Tariffs Will Rebuild Our Economy, it's based entirely on our own economic history. And that's what's really important to understand.
I so appreciate you bringing that up, Spencer. First of all, the lesson of needing to learn your history and know your history. But second of all, seeing the real reason behind these tariffs, I think so very important for us. So my question for you here in regarding that there, Spencer, is, in your opinion, what should the end goal of these particular tariffs that the Trump administration is administering be? Is it bring back manufacturing to the U.S., get tariff revenue from other nations, just get what we want from other nations, make America great on the world stage again, a mixture of all of those? What would it be?
Yeah, the tariffs are a really interesting tool because they have both a political function and an economic function. Right. So you've mentioned that tariffs can be used to get political leverage over other countries, and that's certainly the case. But my focus is not on the politics. My focus is on the economic side of the thing. What I'd love to see happen is for the tariffs to be raised high enough and to make sure that they're stable enough that American businesses and foreign businesses decide to reallocate their production to America. They reshore the factories from places like China or India or Mexico, and they reshore them to America. And the reason for that is because that's what drives long-run economic growth. In the short term, we've got great things. We've got more jobs. We have more purchasing power. We have an increase in wages. That's all excellent for the American middle and working class. But in the long run, we need to focus on what actually drives the economy. And what drives the economy is technological growth. And the reality is that we're not going to have long-run technological growth when all of our technological manufacturing is abroad. Right? How are we going to be innovating on the next big computer chip when we don't manufacture the computer chips here? It just doesn't make any sense.
Folks, again, speaking to Spencer Morrison. Spencer's the editor-in-chief, the National Economics Editorial, author of Reshore, How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. Spencer, I appreciate that insight there. One of the concerns that I have, and this is generally for the Trump administration as a whole, is the sustainability of it. I love everything that the Trump administration is doing. My concern is 2029 comes and there's another administration in, and then everything just reverts back to what it was under the Biden administration, for example. The gains not being sustainable. What are your thoughts on this and how the Trump team can make these strides that they're making here permanent should, for example, a J.D. Vance or another member of the Trump team might not be sitting in the Oval Office next presidential term?
Oh, and this is why people have to put they have to pressure their congressmen to get this done, right? Yeah. Because we all know that the Constitution says the power of the purse rests with Congress. Not with the president, not with the executive, not with the courts. It rests with Congress. What President Trump has been doing is he has been exercising delegated authority. He's been exercising the authority in certain statutes that says the executive can do tariffs, to accomplish this goal or this goal, but they're all temporary. Until Congress takes President Trump's tariffs and trade deals and wraps them up into actual legislation, there's not going to be any long-term stability. So Congress needs to get this done, and President Trump's focus, now that he's got tariffs in place, should be working with Congress for the rest of the term to get these codified so that the tariffs remain in place, after he's gone. Because you're right, the big problem right now is that they're temporary, and businesses don't like to see that. Businesses want to see that the tariffs are going to be in place so that they can recoup their investment. Because if you're a big company and you're going to invest, in manufacturing in America, your capital costs could very well be $1 billion, $2 billion, $10 billion, depending on what you're doing. And if the tariffs aren't going to be in place for more than 2 or 3 years, why would you make that capital investment? It doesn't make any sense, right? That's why tariffs are a long-term solution. So Congress needs to get off their hands, and they got to get this done.
Speaking with Spencer Morrison here, folks. Spencer, I got to ask a question that I personally have been wondering here. The 16th Amendment. So Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes, one of the most grotesque overreaches of government power, in my opinion. Is there any hope that these tariffs could get big enough to where the question could be asked, can we do away with the 16th Amendment? What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. God bless, brother. That's what I'd love to see.
I wish, right?
Yeah. Well, so this is actually the problem that I talked about at the start. And this is part of the reason that the government was originally founded to operate on tariffs. Tariffs are a beautiful thing because if you raise the rate too high, people just don't buy the imports anymore. They buy American products. Right? So you can't have unlimited taxation. And if you can't have unlimited taxation under tariffs, the corollary to that is that you can't borrow infinite money because the lenders know that you're not actually good for it. So that's how tariffs keep the size of government in check. It was only after 1913 when America instituted the income tax that not only did taxation go nuts, but more importantly, the borrowing went nuts as well because now the government can simply raise income tax on everybody, and basically the banks know that they're good for it, right? So they'll lend them essentially infinite amounts of money, and this is that cycle that's been in place since then. So what I'd love to see happen is a shift away from domestic taxes and a focus on instead tariff revenue. But that's going to require the cooperation of, frankly, all levels of government because everybody in government is benefiting from the income tax. Absolutely. The American people are getting destroyed over it, of course, but they don't they don't seem to care about the regular people.
Unfortunately not, and that goes with both political parties as well, sadly. Spencer, I so appreciate the conversation we've been able to have. Hey, tell us quickly, you're the editor-in-chief of the National Economics Editorial. What does your organization do? How do you guys raise this kind of awareness that we need to have a good, strong economy, America first? What do you guys do for that?
Yeah, so I founded the National Economics Editorial in 2015, and I've been writing about these topics ever since. Unfortunately, during COVID, the entire project got censored quite heavily. I lost my Facebook following of 84,000 followers. We got delisted on Google. My Twitter was suspended. Our YouTube channel was taken down. And accordingly, since then, the NEE has really been reduced to a blog on my Substack page, unfortunately, due to the censorship. But what I do is really spread awareness of these issues in conjunction with my book and appearances. And I do my best to educate the American people and people in academia and our government on tariffs. For example, I recently did a debate at Mises University on the question of free trade, and I think I'll be speaking at the University of Florida in the next couple of months. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, lots of hearts and minds that need to be changed, and I do my best to make that happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, Spencer, we don't have time for it in this interview, but I'd love to have you back on sometime to even address some of those maybe criticisms that we've heard from the other side about tariffs, jacking up prices, different things like that. Unfortunately, we'll have to save that for the next time. But before we go, Spencer, you mentioned your book, again, Reshore, How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. Where can our listeners learn more about this book and get a copy of it if they are so interested?
Yeah, the book's available on Amazon. The book's available from the publisher directly at calamopress.com. And then, of course, I'd encourage people to stay in contact with me. You can do that by following me on X at RealSPMorrison or following me on Substack at RealSPMorrison. And then the publication would be the National Economics Editorial. That's where you're going to get all of my up-to-date information. I write columns as well. I'm on Blaze Media, for example. But follow along, everybody. Let's keep the ball rolling.
Well said, Spencer. Folks, again, Spencer Morrison, Editor-in-Chief, National Economics Editorial, author of Reshore, How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. Spencer, I enjoyed our conversation very much, brother, and I look forward to the next time. We've got more financial issues coming up, folks, on the other side of this break. If you have to leave us, we hope you have a great day. For the rest of you, stick around. More coming up after this. Gain valuable insights from partners sharing about financial issues.
So hard, all of us do, to get this money, and I knew nothing about how to use it appropriately, biblically, and the strategy is so simple. You guys are on the front line of the battle.
My wife and I have been partners with you for several years, and we have benefited greatly from your advice and your ministry.
I do nothing without following FISM's advice on stocks, and especially since it's coming from a spiritual foundation.
You are amazing. Nobody is doing what you are doing for the body of Christ.
I just wanted to call and thank you for the advice that you gave me a little over a year ago. It has panned out very well.
I've never dreamed I'd be able to give money like this.
Become a partner today by simply going to financialissues.org/join. Click the green button to become a partner today.
One of the emphases of preborn has been ultrasound in two ways. An ultrasound machine if a pregnancy clinic doesn't have one, and then an ultrasound session, which we underwrite hundreds of thousands of those. We've seen over and over again the dramatic results that when a woman encounters her baby for the first time and hears that heartbeat, she realizes the magnitude of what's happening here, that there is somebody else. That's her baby. So this is why preborn pushes out ultrasound as much as we possibly can. Preborn has seen over 200,000 babies saved, over 59,000 people come to Christ, populating earth and eternity, life for this life and life forever. Save the baby's life, but save the mother's life so that she can lead that baby to Christ. If we're bringing people into this world and the mother doesn't receive Christ and the child is born and the child lives its life and doesn't receive Christ, this is not a good end. And so we have to have the gospel as part and parcel and really the heartbeat of what preborn is.
Welcome back, folks. Good to be here with you today. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Spencer. I'll be sure to have Spencer back on the program sometime soon. Quickly here, we've got the markets just opened up. Everything in negative territory, looking not as down as they were, but still down somewhat significantly. The Dow Jones has turned course, is now down about almost 0.5%. S&P 500 0.25% down. NASDAQ, same thing, 0.25% down. The NASDAQ is nursing a 2-day losing streak, so we'll see if it can turn it around later in the day today. Okay, folks, I have another special guest joining me here. I've got Melanie Collette. Melanie is an author, and she's also a policy analyst for the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow. I'm very excited to talk to Melanie now. Melanie, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So in the last several weeks, Melanie, we saw news that Costco came out and asserted that it will not sell the abortion pill mifepristone. We here at Financial Issues very excited about that. And of course, celebrating this, it does lead to some questions. And that's where I'd like to get your expertise on this. First off, it appears that this came about from pressure from Christians, faith-based groups, putting pressure on the company. And that's true whether Costco's admitting it or not. I'd love for you to speak to this collective power of Christian money managers and investors coming together to get something done like this. How did this happen?
And the thing is, it has to do with the free market, which is what I love about this.
Yeah.
Like, you don't necessarily have to get outside with your signs and protest and yell and scream at people.
Yeah.
You can actually put pressure on the market and allow that to happen. So as more people get educated, I think from conservative groups and anti-abortion groups got educated on what this pill does, and the more we spread the word and said, hey, these are all the side effects. These are how it's negatively affecting women, not to mention it's killing babies. You need to stop selling this drug. I think that is how it happened. Like I said, the biggest part of the story is the only thing that I love more than the fact that less women will be injured and less babies will die in utero is the fact that it was the financial industry, it was the free market that spoke loudly and said, stop selling this pill.
And that's exactly what the free market's supposed to do, right, Melanie? It's supposed to offer that kind of checks and balance like that. I love that too. That's absolutely awesome. And that was part of what I was going to ask you next. Is it seems like Costco's claiming it's just because of fallen sales, and doesn't seem to be like they're giving much time of day to the concerted effort from conservatives and Christians. What are your thoughts on that? Are both those things true, where it kind of was from fallen sales and also from the effort, or was it more one or the other?
I think that there are falling sales, but I don't quite buy that it's totally because of that. Only because 2/3 of abortions in this day and age are done via those drugs, via that pill. People are not really going to Planned Parenthood because it's uncomfortable. And pro-lifers like myself have made it uncomfortable. Why you would be uncomfortable with somebody praying for your soon-to-be unalive child is beyond me, but that's a different story. Why you would be so bothered by that. But, I think that has something to do with it, but not by and large, because like I said, 2/3 of abortions are now performed this way. But even when that pill works effectively, it's very ugly with how the process, if you will. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, so we're not going to get into detail, but it's a very ugly process. And when it doesn't work well, women can be subjected to sepsis and ruptures and infections and things like that and be sent to the ER. So I also think that as more education about those things have gotten around, that probably lowered the sale of those pills.
I'm so glad that education's going around, Melanie. By the way, folks, speaking to Melanie Collette. Melanie is the policy analyst for Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow. Melanie, you had just mentioned that there. I'd like to kind of pick up on that. The fact that mifepristone is such an ugly drug, not only for the babies it kills, but for the women it harms. Give us a picture here of the potential life-saving impact, not only for babies, but for women and girls also.
So to be clear, when we're talking about the life-saving, when you just look at the number of babies that have been killed in utero just in general and do a multiplier on how many lives that you have killed off, it's frightening. Millions to date. Over 60 million babies killed. And when we talk about the side effects and the damage that it possibly does, we're literally talking about 11% in reality, according to one study, as opposed to the 0.5% that it says on the label in the packaging. So we're talking about saving lives and saving women from possible permanent damage in their reproductivity, just because, the timing is off and they didn't want to have that baby at that time and took that pill. So it's a crazy amount of lives saved when you look at it in the macro, and you look at like lives over lives, particularly in the Black community. I always think about this, and I always bring this to people's attention when we talk about the fact that, Black folks are only like 13% of the population in the United States, right? And you think about the fact that we are killing our own children, the multiplier of that and how many Black folks there would be here if there weren't a Planned Parenthood on every corner, and drugs like that pill, I'm having trouble pronouncing it, like that pill on the market.
Yeah.
So it's a multiplier effect that people don't think about.
So important to understand that. So it's funny, Melanie, because when we talk about this drug, mifepristone, I have a sarcastic thought in my mind, and it's always the one of, how are we surprised that a drug that is designed to kill a human being also has side effects that might harm the other human being that is currently the one that the human being who's getting killed is inside of? It's a shocker to so many people, but no, the reality is, of course, it's harmful, and of course, it needs to be stopped. And I'm so excited to see this happening. And so my last question for you, Melody, in this regard is this merely a one-off for retailers selling this deadly drug, or is there hope that we can see Costco started a fire here, and maybe Walmart, maybe CVS, maybe others might start following suit? What are your thoughts on that?
It would be great to see them follow suit. I'm hoping that they follow suit. I am sure that the pro-life movement and the investors and everyone else who put pressure on Costco to do this are putting the same pressure. Matter of fact, I know for a fact that they have written letters to these other drug pharmacies and said, hey, you need to follow suit and do the same thing as what Costco is doing. And I hope they do follow suit, if for no other reason than the drug seems to be way more dangerous than advertised, and it really should be under medical supervision. There are pro-life OBGYNs who have talked about how pharmacists really aren't qualified or skilled enough to be prescribing this drug. On the rare occasions that this could possibly be used, it should be done under doctor supervision.
Mm-hmm. Well said, Melanie. I appreciate that a lot. Folks, again, Melanie Collette, author, policy analyst for the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, CFACT. Melanie, I'd like you to tell our audience, this is your first time on the show, so tell our audience about yourself and the work that you do with the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow.
Well, thank you so much. The sole purpose, I shouldn't say the sole purpose, the main purpose of a Committee for Constructive Tomorrow has to do with a conservative angle on environmentalism. However, we do work as far as free market capitalism and preservation of the world and humanity. And this certainly falls right within that wheelhouse, which is why we decided to comment on this particular issue that's a little bit outside the realm of the environment. But we are pro-humanity and pro-free market, and this was certainly an issue that fell right into that category.
Absolutely. Quickly here, Melanie, give our listeners a taste of some of those other initiatives that you are involved as you guys are pro-humanity. What are some other things that you do at CFACT?
Certainly. One of the biggest fights that we have now is offshore wind. We've been fighting offshore wind for years. There's nothing clean about it. Its effect on climate change is negligible, and it's nothing but a grift. You should look out for an op-ed coming out soon about the effect on AI in utility prices and the building of data centers. There's also another, and these are mine. We have several, and you should definitely hop on to CFACT.org to check us out. And there's another one coming out about the global plastics treaty talks that happened in Switzerland last week. So you should look out for that from CFACT as well.
We'll do that. CFACT.org. Melanie, thank you so much for joining me on the show. It was a pleasure to have you this morning, and I look forward to the opportunities that we have to get to speak again. Folks, again, Melanie Collette, author, policy analyst for CFACT. That's the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow. You can check them out at CFACT.org. Here comes Craig Halgard with our Ag Report, folks, and then we'll be back with more financial issues right on the other side of this break.
This is Craig Halgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for August 21st. Well, the Pro Farmer Tour showed strong corn yields yesterday in portions of Indiana and Nebraska. The Indiana yield came in at an estimated 193.8 bushels per acre, up from 187.5 last year, while Nebraska, the Crop Scouts estimated the yield at 179.5 bushels per acre, up from 173.25 a year ago. December corn finished today 0.75 cents higher at $4.04 per bushel. The Pro Farmer farmer tour found pod counts in Indiana below last year's numbers. That helps support soybeans. Now, from a longer-term perspective, eyes remain focused on China. The American Soybean Association has sent a letter to President Trump warning that the U.S. growers are facing severe financial distress if the trade war with China persists. China has yet to book any new crop soybeans from the U.S. Looking at old crop, Chinese soybean imports from Brazil in July rose by 13.9% from year earlier numbers, while U.S. imports fell by 11.5% in the same period. November beans finished today 2.25 cents higher at $10.36. The wheat market hit some new lows and then had a bit of a technical bounce as a little technical buying came into the market. At the close, we had Minneapolis December wheat a penny and a half higher at $5.89. Kansas City also rose by 1.5 cents to close at $5.2325. And Chicago was 7 cents better at $5.2825. Cotton futures inched higher in yesterday's trade. We had December futures up 4 points at the closing bell at $67.60. Live cattle and feeder cattle both set record highs during yesterday's trade. October live cattle finished today $3.50 higher, $234.85 per hundredweight. September feeder cattle were $5.67.5 higher, closing out the day at $358.10 per hundred. And October lean hog futures, they were 20 cents lower at $89.95 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures saw their recent rally kind of run out of gas. At the closing bell, we had September futures down 13 points as they settle out today at $18.75. This has been Craig Howgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
It's easy to get caught up in the rush and forget about what really matters. Too often, we invest in stocks without knowing what they stand for. When your investments align with your values, your money speaks for you. Because biblical values matter, even when investing. Learn how to invest biblically and responsibly. Visit financialissues.org to learn more. That's financialissues.org.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
I found out I was pregnant when I was 21 years old. For me, I was scared, I was shaking. They do an ultrasound. And that's when everything changed. When I saw my baby and when I heard her heartbeat, that was it. We've seen the hand of God ever since we stepped into the pregnancy center.
To find out how you can support the life-saving mission of Preborn, go to preborn.com/FISM.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Thanks for joining us on Financial Issues today, folks. It's been a good show, and I'm grateful for each of you on the chat this morning, and those of you listening on social media, the radio, our TV feed. Happy to have you all, folks. Lisa from Texas, good morning to you, Lisa. Steven from Oklahoma, Brian and Kara, great to see you guys. Nelson, thanks for putting the link in there for CFACT. Nelson from Louisiana. Good to see Mark in the chat, and Elijah in the chat, as well as Sam. I see Sam in there, too. So, Sam, I'm saying hello to you here and also on the chat.
I get lonely during doing the interviews, so I need to get in the chat.
Yep. Claude is there. Claude, good to see you, brother. Brian from Virginia. Great to see Brian. Ann, hello, Ann. Good to see you. And I do appreciate you bringing up that particular stock. I'm going to look into that for you. We'll see if we can get to the bottom of that one. We've also got John from Alabama. Good to see John. I'm trying to see if I missed anyone here. I think we got all of them. If I missed you, give me a shout out in the chat. Say, hey, Seth, you missed me, knucklehead. And I will try to get to you there as well before we sign off on the end of the show today. Conference call, folks, today, 12 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. Again, conference call today. You should have gotten the login information, the call-in information. If you didn't get it or you don't see it in your spam folder, or perhaps you accidentally deleted the email or something like that, go to the partner side of the website, the alerts page, and you should have it right there at the top of the alerts page there. Speaking of which, also, folks, on the partner side, we will have the conference call posted hopefully sometime this afternoon, shortly thereafter, once compliance folks confirm it. So should be all good there. Sam, let's get to now the stuff that we teed up at the beginning of the show today when it comes to the conflation, which we don't like, but a lot of, unfortunately, people think that they're conflated similar things, investing and gambling. Robinhood,
Seth, I will
not
say
doing
you've
us
done
any
a
favors,
wonderful job of controlling your emotions over this.
I appreciate that. We'll see how we do at the end of this.
I thought you were going to pop a gasket during the interviews.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's nonsense. But what do we have here, Sam? What kind of gobbledygook is Robinhood getting into?
Yeah, so sadly it's true. Online stockbroker Robinhood is now getting into sports betting, posting in a statement, customers can now trade, so already that's a questionable phrase right there, trade, i.e. gamble, on the outcomes of the most popular pro and college football games, including regular season pro matchups and all college Power 4 schools and independents. I don't know college football. I don't know what that means. All I know is that you can bet on the outcomes now.
The lesson is there's a lot of college football you can bet on.
That's right.
Robinhood's loving it because there's a lot of options.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting about this is they're trying to claim it's not actually sports betting. They said, quote, unlike sports betting, where the firm, like the bookie, sets a line, event contracts, which is what they're offering, leverage the power and rigor of financial market structures and are offered in a marketplace where buyers and sellers interact to set the price. So I don't know what you think about that, Seth, but to me that seems like a whole lot of a distinction without a real difference. So what they're basically saying is the only difference is that the odds operate through a shifting market. So the odds change throughout the game rather than traditional sports betting where the odds are fixed by the sports book. So in the end, you're still putting money on the outcome of the game, though. And by the way, this isn't entirely new for Robinhood. They have offered betting or speculation for some time on stuff like this, offering bettings, for example, on the presidential election last year.
Oh, thank you, Sam. See, this is why Robinhood, you're the reason why we can't have nice things. Robinhood. Like this, it's so stupid. This is exactly undercutting what long-term investors are trying to share with the public there's a difference, folks. There is a difference. Here's the deal. In all seriousness, Sam, Robinhood is a trading platform, which I have a lot of uneasy feelings about as a trading platform, and I don't particularly use it. They seem to be the anti-hero when it comes to long-term investing. Certainly, not necessarily
kind of like Robinhood,
like a villain, kind of like Robinhood. The whole robbing the rich, feeding the poor thing. I think Robinhood, the historical Robinhood, or at least the legend, was maybe a little more heroic than this Robinhood is. But it seems to be, Sam,
it seems more like stealing from the poor if you're getting them to gamble.
Stealing from the poor and tricking them into thinking that they can win all this money if they just use it. Yeah, this platform is ripe for this kind of stuff, though. It really is. They seem to be more a breeding ground for betting style investing, which is really just day trading, which is really just, I would say, betting in kind of more of an investment language. Let me give you a few reasons, folks, why this particular platform is controversial, in addition to what we just heard from Sam, which is very controversial. About 4 years ago, our founder, Dan Celia, had some very, very harsh words for Robinhood and even warned listeners to move away from using it as a trading platform. We did have a clip of that. The clip is a little too long to play on the show, but you can find that clip really easily. Now, Dan warned against Robinhood, not for BRI reasons, because once again, folks, we have to remind you, if you're using an investment platform, you're not investing in the investment platform. You're just using the goods or services. So it wasn't for BRI reasons, but it was for what appeared to be legal reasons surrounding surrounding an SEC filing. If you search on YouTube for the clip titled "It's Time to Get Out of Robinhood" on Financial Issues, it's time to get out of Robinhood. You can find that clip there. While I'm talking, maybe whenever Sam jumps in, because I multitasking is not always the easiest thing to do, I'll grab that clip and put it into the chat.
You mean you can't talk, type, look up a video?
If I had two mouths, four hands.
It's a shame, Seth.
That's exactly
I thought you were better than this.
I know. I'm sorry. But listen, we're trying to criticize Robinhood, not me. No.
See, I'm multitasking.
Exactly.
I can criticize more than one thing.
Exactly. It's time to get out of Robinhood is the name of the clip, folks. So search that. It's time to get out of Robinhood. Really good clip. So that was one thing. It's also worth noting, Sam, a lot of the trading that took place in the GameStop stock run-up of 2021, guess where it happened? Most of it happened on Robinhood.
And they had to shut it down.
And then they just shut it down.
Because they had liquidity issues.
Yep, that's exactly right. So, Sam, tell me if I'm getting this right. They shut down the ability to buy Robinhood, but you could still
That's exactly
sell it?
right. You couldn't buy it in the run-up. Once the run-up got really hot, they stopped letting you buy it, but you could sell it.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of concerning things about this particular trading platform.
Which, again, it's ironic because the whole GameStop thing, it made a lot of novice investors rich. So it's really anti-Robinhood to stop those people from making money.
That's exactly right, Sam. And Sam, thank you for your comment there because it gave me time to put the
look
link
at
in the
that.
chat.
I'm helping.
So that link there, folks, of Dan's clip is now in the chat. It's on YouTube. You follow that link. You can watch that after the show today. It's really, really good. Again, we just didn't have time for it on the show today. Here's the point, Sam, that I'm really trying to get to. Where there is smoke, there's fire. That's a good foundational wisdom piece that you learn. If there's smoke, chances are there's fire. This particular trading platform is ripe for such things like this. It's no surprise that this is happening here.
In fact, even in the regular investing that you do on Robinhood, they kind of treat it like gambling. When you make a sell and it makes you money, they give you confetti, kind of like if you scored on a slot machine or something like that, just to get your emotions to run high. Yesterday, we were talking to Mark Manila, and he said emotions are the worst thing in investing, and Robinhood makes it so easy to get riled up about these things. They actually encourage it. It's almost like you're playing a video game when you're using Robinhood. I tried it a little bit when I first started getting into investing. I'll say the best thing about it is the user interface is really good, but that's kind of the insidious part, right? They make it really easy to use for people who have never tried to invest before, and then because of that, they can make you make really risky decisions by rewarding behaviors that might not be best for your portfolio.
Isn't it funny, Sam, how some of the most foolish things look the best? They look so good when you first start it, and then once you're in it and you realize how foolish it is, you see the ugliness of it. It's well said, man.
There's a reason why Vegas is so fun to look at. It's got all the neon and the fun signs.
Exactly right. Once you get into it, boy, watch out. I think the lesson we can learn here is that there's a lot of wisdom in not just biblically responsible investing, but picking a good trading platform too. This is not a BRI issue, folks. We don't believe that you need to avoid any particular trading platform.
Oh yeah, if you're using Robinhood and you like it, keep using it. Just be wary of how they operate.
Just be very, very wary. Absolutely. Like I said, I don't particularly use it. I don't plan to. There are a lot of trading platforms out there. Most of them are not BRI. You don't have to worry about that because you're not investing in the trading platform. You're using the good or service that the trading platform offers. For example, Fidelity or Charles Schwab or one of those other ones, or Robinhood. We don't recommend one particular trading platform over another. However, we will give you signs of wisdom and things to look out for if we see warning signs with any platform in particular. And I think, Sam, what we just talked about with Robinhood, it's a pretty good warning sign, I think. So good to talk about that, folks. Sam, I think we made it through without me blowing a gasket, so I think that was good.
Yeah, the gaskets are sealed.
Gaskets
They're
are still
unblown.
There, so that's good. Why don't we finish on a little bit of a lighter note here, Sam? Gary is 68. He's asking a question for us. Why don't we get to Gary's here?
Yeah, speaking about user interface, Gary says he loves the asset allocation models and portfolio tracker. He says it makes it so much easier to be diversified. That's the point, Gary.
Nice,
so I'm glad you're making use of it. He says he's looking at the top of the tracker, though, and he sees different tab options. And he wants to know, does this mean he can create two different asset allocations to track? One for him, who's things in the income allocation, and he'd like to also open one for his granddaughter's college in a growth model. He says everything in his granddaughter's portfolio right now is already in the FISM buy list.
Gary, that's awesome. Awesome all around. I love that. You can certainly do that. That's a great thing for you to do. One of the really good features of our new website is you can now have multiple portfolios under the same profile. It's very easy. You just click through between them. Sam, tell me if I'm correct on this, but if you're on the partner side and you go to the portfolio tracker, when you see your portfolio, there's a plus button. That's the add a portfolio button. So you click that and you just follow the instructions.
Right above the dollar amount at the top. So you'll see probably your name, whatever you named your portfolio,
whatever
right
your
next to it, you'll see a little plus button. That means you can create a new one.
So Gary, I would just tell you, make it your granddaughter's portfolio. I would certainly do the growth model, absolutely, because you're going off of her age, so she's got a lot of time. And I think that's excellent, man. It's a tremendous thing for you to do. And I love to see, Gary, it's such a palate cleanser after what we just talked about with Robinhood, that you are using wisdom, also such a loving attitude to want to put money away for your granddaughter, and hopefully maybe even get to teach her a little bit about investing along the way. So cool. So well done, brother. You can definitely do that. I think it's a great thing for you to do. Folks, it was a joy to be here. Hey, I did want to remind you, tomorrow's Bible study, if you've got questions about Daniel 7, you can email those to me at seth@fism.tv. We also have we already have a lot of questions, so we might not have time to get through all of them, but it should be a good time tomorrow morning. Conference call later today, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Central Time. Make sure that you join us. Remember, it's all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards of what God has given to us. God bless you all.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.